Okay. How's this? Good enough. Maybe a little bit more here. It's possible. Okay. So I'm gonna be going over the first chapter of the Dhammapada and we're gonna talk about it. So that's about it. Let's go right into it. So it starts with Namo Tassu Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the Blessed One, the Perfected One, the Supremely Enlightened One. And the first chapter is called The Pairs. So let's get right into it. The first quote: mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind wrought. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows him like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. So let's unpack this. So first, the mind. The mind is conditioned, right? So all mental states depend on contact, right? Because it happens like this: contact, and then there's feeling, and there's a perception, and then there's a mental formation, a mental state, and then there's consciousness of it, right? So contact is conditioned. The mind conditions contact. Why? Because there's tendencies, right? Like you have patterns, you make contact with certain things. Like maybe you're more sensitive to certain sounds, so you notice them, while some sounds go unnoticed, so there's no contact there. So contact is conditioned because your attention is conditioned. Where you place your attention, what you make contact with, that's all conditioned. So the mind conditions contact, right? That's why it precedes all mental states, because we have conditioning, and conditioning conditions contact. And then contact conditions feeling, and feeling is conditioned. Like for example, I don't like salad, so when I see salad, it's an unpleasant feeling because of the mind's conditioning. While some people like salad, for them it's a pleasant feeling. Some don't care, for some it's a neutral feeling, right? So the mind again conditions contact and conditions feeling. Then it conditions perception, right? Because I may perceive salad as nasty salad. Someone may perceive it as tasty salad. Someone may perceive it as just salad, right? There's a perception of nastiness, right? Maybe I'm more focused on the nasty aspects of it. For someone, he's more focused on the delicious aspects of it. So perception is again conditioned. The mind is conditioned. Conditioning precedes perception. So conditioning conditions contact, conditions feeling, conditions perception. And then mental formations, like if I have an unpleasant feeling, a condition of nasty salad, I'm gonna have a mental formation of perhaps aversion, right? Like avoiding it, right? Or someone might have desire, wanting it. Someone might be indifferent. Again, mental formations are conditioned, and that conditions consciousness, right? Like if I have aversion, my consciousness is gonna change how contact is conditioned by me having a sort of narrowing of attention towards the unpleasant aspects of the salad, and towards my aversion towards it gets fed, while someone may have more desire, more clinging, more movement towards it. So like I said, mind precedes all mental states. Mind here is basically referring to your conditioning, right? Mind is their chief, they're all mind wrought. So if with an impure mind the person speaks or acts, suffering follows him like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. Because an impure mind is a mind that doesn't see clearly, that is laced with defilement, and pursuing greed, pursuing hatred, and just being ignorant, right, leads you to have negative consequences, to experience more craving, and craving is dukkha, feeling is dukkha, leads to more birth, which leads to more old age, sickness, and death. So if the mind is impure, it does not see clearly, and such mind leads to negative consequences down the stream. So this quote basically tells you conditioning precedes mental states, and if your mind is impure, so there's a lot of defilements conditioned, then it leads to suffering, right? Second quote: mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind wrought. if with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follows him like his never departing shadow. So it's basically just the inverse. Like, again, conditioning, conditions, contact, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness, what we call the mind, is all conditioned, and mental states arise out of that conditioning. So if you have a pure mind, so not a lot of defilement, low appropriation, low desire, or non-existent, wherever it may be, then yeah, you have happiness, you don't have suffering. That leads to good destinations. He abused me, he struck me, he overpowered me, he robbed me. Those who harbor such thoughts do not still their hatred. So this is pretty simple. These thoughts are mental proliferation. So out of contact and unpleasant feeling and perception arise a perception, he abused me, and a mental formation of aversion, right? Hatred, right? So the perception of these things and the mental proliferation, papanka, basically fuels hatred. So those who harbor such thoughts and identify with them and give them justification, they never still their hatred only deepens, right? Or stays the same. It doesn't get uprooted, it does not lessen. Because such thoughts fuel hatred, right? They are the cause of hatred, is basically aversion, and these are aversive thoughts, right? Again, he abused me, he struck me, he overpowered me, he robbed me. Those who do not harbor such thoughts still their hatred. So it's just the inverse. If you abandon such thoughts, if you don't feed them, if you eventually don't harbor them, then you have no conditions for hatred to arise, right? Because hatred arises out of ignorance. These thoughts arise out of ignorance. It's all one giant conditioned process. Hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is an eternal law. So yeah, hatred is not appeased or lessened by hatred. In fact, that leads to more hatred only by choosing non-hatred, by abandoning hatred, by cultivating restraint towards hatred, by cultivating understanding of hatred where it can eventually be abandoned by understanding, not through mere restraint. That is how hatred is eventually uprooted, right? Not through more hatred. That makes sense, right? There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who realize this settle their quarrels. So yes, this is just reminding yourself of death, a practice the Buddha often prescribed to increase a sense of urgency. Because those who do not realize that we must die, right? They quarrel, they perceive that they have infinite time to figure their stuff out, to practice, to settle their quarrels. So it just causes eventual bad rebirth, perhaps even in hell realms. Instead, those who are well aware of death in every moment, those actually are steady in their practice, cultivate the mindfulness, genuinely uproot things, genuinely see things clearly, what the Buddha said to look at. So, pretty self-explanatory there too. Just as a storm throws down a weak tree, so does Mara overpower one who lives for the pursuit of pleasures, who is uncontrolled in his senses, immoderate in eating, indolent and dissipated. So I've noticed this one a lot in my own life over the years. Perhaps now it's better, I'm not gonna get into it, but I can vouch for this one. Like, if you live for the pursuit of pleasures instead of wisdom, renunciation, like abandonment, you're uncontrolled in your senses, so you don't sense restraint. You basically take the second look. Let the senses dictate your behavior. No restraint there. Immoderate in eating, right? That just fuels more consumption. Indolent, something poked me. It was this, I think. Indolent and dissipated, so unconcentrated, the opposite of meditative, unconcentrated. A storm overthrows him, Mara overpowers him, right? Mara is like if you have a strong desire, one who has strong equanimity, who is controlled, who has sense restraint, who's practiced this stuff, the desire doesn't move him, and therefore it does not get fed, and therefore it weakens, and eventually cessation happens. That desire does not arise anymore, and that's how the path progresses. But if one is not strong, right, one is like a weak tree, then Mara overpowers him, right? One who lives for the pursuit of pleasures, who doesn't abandon pleasures, still may struggle with pleasure, but at least mentally abandoned it, resolved to uproot it. One who lives for the pursuit of pleasures, Mara will always overpower him. And Mara is the tempter. as an evil-minded deity who tries to lead people away from the path to liberation. Just as a storm cannot throw down a rocky mountain, so Mara can never overpower one who lives meditating on the impurities, who is controlled in his senses, moderate in eating, and filled with faith and earnest effort. So the impurities, asubha, subjects of meditation which focus on the inherent repulsiveness of the body, recommended especially as powerful antidotes to lust. So just as a stone cannot overpower a rock mountain, so temptation, I'll just say temptation instead of Mara, can never overpower one who lives meditating, so is the opposite of dispersed, is concentrated, meditating on the impurities, so meditates on the opposite of pleasant perception, the unpleasant perception of the body, therefore that naturally weakens lust. Who is controlled in his senses, so doesn't just, like a charioteer checks his horses, right? Like, if you can't control your horses, they lead the chariot. If you can control your horses, if you have restraint over your senses, they don't lead you astray. Moderate in eating and filled with faith and earnest effort, because eating causes also laziness of the mind. Too much food causes you to be sleepy and drowsy. So it's the opposite of being mindful, right? And alert and wakeful. And if you have faith in the Buddha and actually put in the right effort, then Mara cannot overpower you. GG Mara, like desire eventually burns out when it's not fed for long enough through actual earnest practice and deepening insight and understanding. So that's why it's a gradual training. Again, the gradual part is very important. It is not single insight enlightenment, it's gradual uprooting of the defilements through training and insight. You train the mind so the mind sees clearer, more consistently, which slowly uproots ignorance in certain aspects. And that causes the withdrawal of fuel, and eventually said tendency burns out, which is nirvana. For that tendency, and when the whole tendency for reproducing birth burns out, that is final nirvana, that is nirvana with residue, and when the arahat dies, that is final nirvana. Whoever wears the monk's yellow robe while being depraved, devoid of self-control and truthfulness, he surely is not worthy of the yellow robe. So those are just some conditions the Buddha named. If someone is a monastic but is depraved, like his thoughts are depraved, is not self-controlled, secretly indulges, not truthful to the Sangha, he's not worthy of being a monastic by the Buddha standards. But whoever is purged of depravity, well established in virtues, and filled with self-control and truthfulness, he indeed is worthy of the yellow robe. That one will also prosper eventually and surely attain at least 3 mantra, if not final nirvana, in my opinion. One who is diligent, controlled, and actually practices the Buddha's teachings as described will surely at least see progress. Those who mistake the unessential to be essential, and the essential to be unessential, dwelling in wrong thoughts, never arrive at the essential. And that is true. If you think the pursuit of progress in materiality, sensuality, self-development is the essential, and abandoning unwholesome, abandoning sensuality, practicing, cultivating mindfulness, concentration, practicing the Dhamma, not being lazy, having a sense of urgency, if you don't see that it's essential to practice and unessential to go down the wrong path, which only strengthens suffering, the cause of suffering, which is craving, clinging, then yeah, one will never arrive at the essential, right? You're basically going in the wrong direction. It's just cause and effect. If you consistently dwell in wrong thought of sensuality, of chasing things, you will go down that path, right? You will not go down the path of abandonment and eventual cessation. No matter what you do, that just those actions, those thoughts causally do not cause cultivation of the factors necessary for the abandonment and uprooting of the defilements. But the opposite, those who know the essential to be essential and the unessential to be unessential, dwelling in right thoughts, arrive at the essential. Because if they know what's unessential, they will abandon it. If they know what's essential, they will cultivate it and eventually arrive at liberation. Simple as that. Simple cause and effect. Cause and effect, nothing mystical. This causes that. It's self-explanatory. If the sun is out, there is light. If there's no sun out, there is no light. If craving is pleasant, it leads to clinging. Clinging leads to holding. Holding leads to dukkha, because it's unpleasant, because things are impermanent, so you can't hold them forever. And holding something that's passing by is hard, it's tense, it's unpleasant, and at the end it's unsatisfying because it ends. So dukkha is a natural consequence of not seeing the 3 marks of existence and everything. Just as the rain does not breaks through an ill-thatched house, even so passion penetrates an undeveloped mind. So it's simple. If the mind is developed, so mindfulness is established, states are being investigated, there's already deep insight, strong, wholesome tendencies have been strengthened, unwholesome tendencies have been weakened, then passion generally won't penetrate such a mind. Sometimes you might need a little bit of effortful restraint if something really strong arises, but that mind that is developed will easily abandon these things. But an undeveloped mind, passion just penetrates just like that automatically. There's no buffer, there's no mindfulness, there's no awareness. The process just lights up. When contact happens, feeling happens, perception happens, craving happens, clinging happens, becoming happens, automatically. No buffer, no understanding, no mindfulness. The mind is not developed for seeing clearly these things. And the tendency gets strengthened. Just as the rain does not break through a well-thatched house, even so passion never penetrates a well-developed mind. I basically already covered this because I said the opposite, right? If a mind is developed, passion cannot penetrate it, and I already told you what developing the mind means. Developing mindfulness, the 7 factors, seeing the 3 marks, seeing dukkha, its origin, its ending, the path leading to its ending. I'm trying to speed this up so it's not like super duper long, but still covered, explains everything well enough. Why I'm trying to do this is I feel inspired to do it, and not everyone's gonna take the time to read through the Nikaya, so I'm not saying anything the Buddha doesn't speak. Perhaps I might be not as precise in some aspects, and you feel free to correct me in the comments, but I'm just trying to compress Nikaya information into a digestible video, yeah. So people don't have to spend time if they don't have time, or if they're not that committed yet to explore everything. But we can still break down these short quotes. The evildoer grieves here, he grieves hereafter, he grieves in both worlds. He laments and is afflicted, recollecting his own impure deeds. So, the evildoer, he grieves here, because evil actions, they cause despair, grief, right? He grieves hereafter, they carry over. He grieves even later, they have consequences later. Perhaps in relationships fall apart, he gets damaged, he loses something. Whatever may happen, the evildoer's actions have negative consequences which cause grief. He grieves in both worlds, so not only does he grieve in this life, when he reincarnates, he grieves in the next life too because of evil actions. He laments, yes, he regrets. He is afflicted, so there is dukkha, an affliction, a felt affliction, a pressure, unpleasant feeling. Recollecting his own impure deeds, so from recollection of those impure deeds, the mind is conditioned and causes grief, lamentation, and other unpleasant things. Again, cause and effect. Buddhism is only cause and effect. It's cause and effect mapping out the path to ending suffering, right? It's not metaphysical. Reincarnation, when seen clearly, is cause and effect. The doer of good rejoices here. He rejoices hereafter, he rejoices in both worlds. He rejoices and exults, recollecting his own pure deeds. So just the opposite. Good actions, good consequences, joy, happiness. Not necessarily nirvana. These are more like higher, lower realms type of talk, because the Buddha sometimes gave instructions on those. It was not general, it was targeted instruction, but a pleasant state also leads to an easier chance for human rebirth, encountering the Dharma, and also a calmer mind to genuinely practice. So it's not bad either way. The evildoer suffers here, he suffers hereafter, he suffers in both worlds. The thought, evil have I done, torments him, and he suffers even more when gone to realms of woe. So someone does evil, he does eventually get tormented by thoughts of doing evil. And yeah, it leads to suffering in many ways. Relationships fall apart, you're pursued by law enforcement, you get hit, abused, shot, damaged, stolen from. Just being around that crowd, being around evil actions, doing evil actions, thinking about evil things leads to many negative consequences. So he suffers here, he suffers hereafter, and he suffers in both worlds, because this world and then negative karma leads to a bad rebirth, so suffer there too. And the thoughts of doing evil also torment him. And he suffers even more when he goes into hell realms, realms of woe. So it's just a bunch of suffering for doing evil. It's not worth it. Like, people will justify evil for a short-term benefit in materiality or whatever. But it's just not objective. When you see clearly evil is a costly thing, it's not, the benefit never outweighs the cost. That's just because of ignorance. So you shouldn't really judge people. Actions have consequences, and even evil actions will have consequences, and they come out of ignorance, not genuine malice. So yeah, evil is not worth it and good is worth it. Like, crazy, right? Because modern society will sometimes have you believe that some amount of immorality is even justified. People do casual immoral things all the time and justify it because there's survival as a condition. Oh, it's for survival, or it's for that or this. But no, negative consequences matter no matter the reason or justification for evil actions. The doer of good delights here, he delights hereafter, he delights in both worlds. The thought, good have I done, delights him, and he delights. So again, this is more higher, lower realm targeted talk, but actions have consequences, cause and effect, karma, rebirth. That's the main point. And we have just 2 more left. Although he recites many sacred texts, if he does not act accordingly, that heedless man is like a cowherd who only counts the cattle of others. He does not partake in the blessings of a holy life. Pretty straightforward. Even if you may recite many things like I'm reciting right now, if you do not actually act, cultivate mindfulness, cultivate concentration, sense restraint, cultivate insight, then you're not doing anything. You just know something. You're not really reaping the blessings of the holy life, the rewards, the fruits of diligent practice, the liberation aspect. You're like counting other people's profits. Yes, you're hearing this works, this has worked, but you're not getting the benefits or results of such cultivation. You're just seeing other people that it worked for. Basically pointless. Maybe a useful thing is maybe you pass it on to someone else, but no, nothing's going to happen for you if you just know this. You have to do it. Although he recites few sacred texts, if he puts the Dhamma into practice, maybe you just need 1 line of Dhamma and consistently practice it, like mindfulness investigation. Forsaking lust, hatred, and delusion, so abandoning it, with true wisdom, because that leads to wisdom, because you understand, oh, I abandoned this, I'm not feeling it, and I genuinely feel less dukkha. That is wisdom, because it motivates the mind to keep abandoning this. An emancipated mind, clinging to nothing in this or any other world, he indeed partakes in the blessings of the holy life. So, here's a clear causal description. Practice this, it works. Don't practice this, but know it, it doesn't work. Do evil, bad consequences. Do good, good consequences. Cause and effect. That's it for the first chapter of Dhammapada, the pairs. That's why I was more focused on pairs, good, bad, does, doesn't. And yeah, eventually I'll do the second chapter, heedfulness, or mindfulness. Thanks for watching. See you in another video. Bye!